All right. Thank you again. My name is Marissa Ryan. I am the Community and Events Marketing Manager here at Cin7. I wanted to thank you guys for joining today for our August webinar, the Insights app webinar. We are very glad that you could take the time out of your busy schedule to join us. If you have any questions about the webinar today, please submit your questions through the chat box. I will shortly submit a chat so you know where to look. We will try to get to all of the questions that we can in the allotted time at the end of the webinar. If you have questions geared towards your situation specifically, we will have contact information at the end of the webinar on the last slide that you can contact our team directly. We will also be recording the session if you have to leave early or if you have a colleague that you would like to share it with. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Oliver, who is our Senior Insights Support Specialist, who will be doing the webinar today. Take it away, Oliver.
Thanks, Marissa. So like she said, I'm Oliver. So I'm the Senior Insights Support Specialist. I've been in the company for a little while now, about 1.5 years. So I'll be going through this webinar for you all. So the agenda for today is we're going to go through the Insights overview. So pretty much we'll go through how the reports work, how all the fields work in a sales report. And then afterwards, we'll then go through the gross profit. So you can all get a general idea of how the gross profit works. And then afterwards, we'll also go through the stock on hand report. We'll also provide a demo after the gross profit, as well as for the stock on hand report, so you can get a better idea. So for the Insights overview, so first when you normally go into Insights, you'll normally see that there's a bunch of sales reports with different dates. So each report is built on a specific date range. So either the created date, the invoice date, or maybe the estimated time of the delivery date. So if you have a sales order, which might not have a ETD or a dispatch or an invoice date, those orders will not come through into those reports until the date has been filled in. So just to give a general Insights overview, so what we currently have is we have the row area. So the row area normally consumes of the either, when you open it, it will be either mainly the customer or the product category. So here you'll see that there's a customer group and the customer. So for each customer, you'll be able to get a report of all the sales from that specific customer. For the column area, you'll see that by default, we normally have the year or month. So we try to keep the column area for the dates. That way you can see by month how much a customer or a product has been selling. You can also bring other pivots down to either the row area or the column area, such as branches, order references, brands, or options. We also have the data area. So in the data area, we normally consume of anything that would be a value. And though the data that's stored, that gets put into the data area, will be put into that results part of the report. So you can see the exact values that are being shown. So it takes an accumulation of all the products or the orders and gives you that total. The filter area is the area at the top. So with the filter area, you'll normally see the branch, maybe the POS register or the channel that orders come from. And you can use that to click the down arrow. And on that down arrow, you can then filter out if you just want one specific branch or just one group. You can also filter from the row area or the column area. So some other parts of the report, you'll see that there is a start date and end date. That start date or end date will reflect based on the report you've opened. So let's say I've opened the created date report. You'll see that we have the start date of the 1st of June and the end date of the 16th of August. So what that means is when you go inside the report, any order that has the created date between those two dates will show up in the report. If you have the invoice date, you'll see that start and the end date will be the invoice date range. So if an order does not have a invoice date between those two ranges or an invoice date at all, you'll see that that order will not show in the report. We also have the rows. So what you can do is when you open it up, it defaults to 500 rows, but you can either make it 100, 600, depending on how many rows you want to show before it will go to separate pages. So if you have more than 500 rows at the moment, there'll be like a little indication that there's multiple pages. The saving tabs is used for, let's say you've opened a sales by customer report, but then you've changed a few of the pivots around, the pivots being these black boxes. If you move one around, let's say you've removed both the customer group and the customer, and you've put in the brand, you can go into that default tab selected part and add a different tab. So when you go in, you can choose between the tabs and it'll change the pivots around for you. With the refresh data, if you have, let's say you've opened a report, it's been about 20 minutes. So after 20 minutes, you've seen that there'll probably be some updated orders depending on how much you're selling at the moment. So if you click that refresh button, it will refresh the current data you have with the updated orders and values. Down at the bottom of the report, we also have the export button. So I'll go a bit more into the export in the demo, but you can choose between multiple options of how you want to export your data for your company needs. And then you just hit the export button, it'll do so. So to go through gross profit, what normally happens is the gross profit is based on how much you're selling and then how much the order costs. So do sales minus cost equals gross profit. And then for the GP percentage, it will take your gross profit and then divide it by the amount of your sales. So if you have a gross profit of 100%, the most likely cause is because you have a cost of 0 in the order, which might be due to your cost of goods not being sold, your cost of goods not being generated, which includes the invoice date, which I'll also go through in the demo. So just make sure to dispatch your invoices before pushing them to your accounting software as well, so your costs can get generated. So I'll go through a quick demo. So here you'll see that we have the standard reports module, and we'll see that there's a bunch of reports. And you'll also see that there is the sales by customer created date, invoice date, not invoice created, etc. What you can also do is down here, there is a manage permissions. So if we go into that, you'll see that there is a bunch of reports you can also look into. So let's say you're more of a fashion company, you can find the sales by customer in color size, which will then present your by your sizes. And you can then install it for either all users or just users with manager permissions. So if we go into, let's say, the sales by customer created date, you'll see that as we open it, we currently have 2 different customers, Microsoft and Cin7. What we can also see here is that these customers for Microsoft, we have sold them 4 items with a sales of $1,000, the gross profit being 83, and the GB percentage being 8.36. So to be able to quickly see the sales and the gross profit thing, you can actually move the cost pivot. And then you can also see your cost as well to get your gross profit pivot. So let's say you also want to see more sales. I can go into here. I'm going to choose February 1st and click search. You'll see that we now have February, June, and August. We don't have any sales between February and June, so they won't show up. Let's say instead of customer, I can move it up in here and drag this as well. We just see the total sales across the board, but let's say instead I want to see by the branch. and we only have one branch at the moment, but if you have multiple branches, they would show up. You would then see by the branch. And we can also put something, let's see, category here. You can also see that as there's no assigned or customer. You can see cash customer, Cin7, Microsoft. So from here, let's say we've set up our new default tab. What we can do here is we can go into here. There'll be a save current tabs. We can go new tab. We go add. And then let's go back into here. You'll see that this has now gone back to the default one. And if we click back to new tab, it's now changed to this. So let's say for your new tab, you've done an update. We'll go into here, and then we'll then go to here, and we can also resave. So after resaving, that will now show. And then if we go back and forth one more time, you'll then see the customer group. We can also, let's say you have a sales and you want to see where the sales is coming from. If we just go back to default, you want to see all the sales between these two. We can go order reference. We can now see all the orders that has come through. So here for Cin7, we can see that there's a 1.3. We can go into here. So this is the sales order. You'll see down here that we have the quantity being 2 products. We can see that there's a unit and the total, and the product and the total. And then you'll see that the product total is also 1,300. So another thing to note is that if you see your sales being a lower value than what's showing on the report, the most likely cause is due to the fact that all our reports are tax exclusive instead of tax inclusive. So if you have tax inclusive, it won't take. So when you do go into your report, it'll mainly just take the product total. Some other things you can know is that if we go to product, let me just find a product we know, and we type in base, you'll see that the base of bed will come up as the only product. Some other things is we only want to see the customer Microsoft. We can click this down arrow and you can untick which ones you don't want. Or you can go into here, look for Microsoft and click OK. Afterwards, you can see here. So when you do a print, you can choose if you want the headers on every page or column headers, row headers, and data headers. And then on export, you can choose your format. So let's say I want so we have PDF, text, HTML, CSV. Let's say I just want the data. You can click export. It will download it for you. And I can quickly open it up. A second. Yeah. And then you'll see that it's exported with your customer, your order references, with your product, and all the totals as well. So that's all for the sales by customer. Let's say for this order that we did as the example, you'll see that if we go into standard reports and go into invoice date, let me just reopen that. You'll see that there are no orders. So as what I explained before, the invoice date isn't populated here, so it will not show up in this report. So if you are looking for all your sales orders in an invoice date report, just make sure that you have got the invoice date. One thing to quickly go through is to make sure that the GB percentage is correct. with what I meant by that. If the code, oh wait, 1 second. If the cost is showing something like 0, it might be because there's 0 here, which is normally from POS orders. So you can go to admin and then just make sure that your invoices have been imported to 0 with an invoice date. So we'll quickly go back now to the webinar. So you'll see here that we have the stock on hand report. So the stock on hand report, stock on hand and availability report is our go-to, I would say is our go-to report on being able to track exactly how much physical stock you have and the exact value based on that physical stock. So what it can also do is it can show you all your current stock on hand, your incoming products from all your purchase orders, your outgoing products and sales orders, as well as all your holding stock that you have currently. The good thing about having the holding stock is that holding stock is taken from the stock on hand, so you can see what stock has been put on holding. One question we do normally get asked is that the stock on hand value is different to the products module cost that you have in the report. And the reason for that is the stock on hand report looks at your true stock value. So if you have something such as freight or discounts into the purchase order, the value of the product will go up or down depending. So it takes it from the purchase order itself rather than on the products module cost. So I will go through another demo just to go into more detail about the stock on hand report. So if I go into it here, you'll see here that we have the company, project name, product, and expiry date. Expiry date is a feature that we have mainly for food products. So if you do want expiry date, you need to make sure it's enabled. And to enable it, you just need to contact us. In the stock on hand report, you'll see that by default, there'll be all your products and all your product codes. And then in here, we have our year, month, like we normally do. So the year and month is dependent on the order itself of its date. And then we also have the stock type. So the stock type can either be stock on hand, holding, incoming, or open sales. So a good way to utilize this report is, let's say for the second item, apparel, we have 116 stock on hand. So first I would just filter it so we only have apparel. And then we're not too sure why this value has this. I'm expecting it to be something else. I can actually just go order reference, put it down, and now I can see exactly where everything is being calculated from. So $18 came from one adjustment, but we had $20 come in from another adjustment. We had a credit note come in on $4, maybe a purchase order coming on 200. And then we can see that on this order here, we have one that's been put into holding. And then we also have the same when it comes to incoming, as well as the open sales. One thing we don't have on this report is providing the exact value of the stock available. However, what we can do is, let me just put this back to normal and move the reference back, is if we go to stock type and we only filter it to stock on hand, and then we also minus for open sales. So through this, we can see that if we have stock on hand minus open sales, this number here should be our correct stock on hand and available. I mean, just our stock available. So you can export that. Some other things that you can do is such as branch. You want to see how much stock you have per branch. You can move the branch down. And since we have a few here, you can see that we have all the products codes, what their stock value and open sales are. for the specific main branch. We also have our apparel with the St. Luke's having 11 here, as well as the warehouse having 41 stock on hand. So it helps you track exactly where all your stock is coming from, and also exactly where it's being delivered in with what costs. So if we have something like an adjustment, let's say you have 5 stock on hand with 0 cost, you can see that the adjustment might have been brought in on 0. So you can then know that you just need to go into that adjustment and just edit the cost. So some other things, if we go to batch and serials, you'll also see that, let's say for the apparel item, you can also split it by the sizes. So you can see how much stock on hand you have per size. Or something like the batch number if it's a batch product. So that's that for that. Another thing you can do in Insights is, I've got to mention, is on favorite and recent reports. In this module, you can set a report as a favorite, and then it will pop up on here. So a way you can do that is you can go into the report. So if we go back in here, we can then look in the top right, there's a favorite this report. We can click that button. And if we go back to favorite reports, the favorites will pop up on here. So if I go back, so that's pretty much it for our basic webinar. I'm happy to take questions from the chat, which is being currently moderated, Marissa.
Yes, great job. Thank you, Oliver. We have a lot of questions. So like I said in the beginning, we might not have the chance to get through all of them. Jetin, do you want to give some questions to Oliver?
Hey, yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Jatin. I'm the support team lead here at Cin7, and appreciate your time to attend this webinar, the Insights app webinar. And I really want to thank Oliver to run us through this amazing webinar. So, yeah, we do have some questions from you guys here. So Caroline has been amazing in asking a lot of questions today that might help the larger audience. So the first question for you, Oliver, from Caroline is, can you change reports around, customize them, then save so that they are easy to pull going forward rather than rebuilding the report each time it is needed? So I think you covered a bit about the default tabs.
Yeah.
So I think just want to, if you can show the demo, maybe a bit slowly, that'll be amazing.
Yeah. So let's say, so the default tabs is how we do of rearranging a report. So if I go, let's say I currently have this default tab selected. I can name this as my new tab. We can also do one more thing where I take this off. And add. And let's say I now close that report completely and go back into it. You'll see that the tabs are back here, so you can quickly go back into the pivots in the placements that you want it in for all your needs. One thing that we don't have at the moment as a functionality with our tab selection is the filtering part. So at the moment, we can't just go filter Adidas and save it like that. If you go back into the report, it will be unfiltered. So the only functionality we have on the default saving would be the actual pivots itself into the report.
Great, thanks, Oliver. So to answer your question, Caroline, we do have the ability to change the report around the way you want that to look. We can customize them if you want to add some basic pivots onto the report, which could be considering on your products module, on your sales order module. Those can be added. And as Oliver mentioned, you can create a tab. So the next time you reopen the report and select that tab, the pivots automatically rearrange themselves in the way you want them to be. Right, so moving on to the next question, again from Caroline. Is there any way to automatically take off the grand total on the export of the report?
I would have to double check that because the exporting is based on the format. However, at the moment, I believe it's a no, but I can have a quick test if we can do something about that and then get back to you.
Great. So Caroline, we've noted down that question and we can get back to you from the support side. Another question from Caroline, can you customize the dates on the stock on hand report, or is it only in real time?
I'm not too sure about the dates. Is there a clarification on the dates?
So the stock on hand report, can you open that? That's open, right? So, so the stock on hand report, I think, would show you the current stock on hand
so it does
at
show
a
real
given time. It's a real-time stock value, Caroline. So the stock value that you have right now, we do have another report, which is historic stock valuation report, where you can actually date back the stock of where that was before. So Oliver was just opening that. So you see that end date on there, historic stock valuation. So if Oliver changes that date to 15th of August, so whatever the stock I had, or 20th of May, as he's doing there, and if he searches the stock now, this report shows you the stock you had on hand on 20th of May. So stock on hand and availability is the present day report. So it's on real time, whereas the historic stock valuation report is based on a date and a timestamp for that matter. So moving on, I've got a question from Heather. Any thoughts on whether reports by default could allow for various currencies, that is the currency the transaction was done in, rather than having everything roll up to our native currency? So for instance, Oliver, a customer selling in multiple currencies, Australian dollar, US dollar, and New Zealand dollars, but the base currency is New Zealand dollars. Would the reports roll up to be in New Zealand dollars, or would it show multiple currencies?
So at the moment, so depending on the region that you're from, all these default sales reports will look at your local currency. However, if you do want to see all your orders coming in at a foreign currency, we have the report. Let me just find it quickly. For purchases, we have purchase by supply and currency. So this report here looks at the foreign currency. And then on this part for sales, we can also have the sales by customer and currency. So these are the reports which allow us to see what the foreign value was for each order or purchase order. However, if you do want them combined or something together, you would need to come through us to see if we can add something like that to a specific report.
Great. I hope that answers your question, Heather. If it doesn't, we'll give you the contact information and you can reach out to our reports team. Moving on, I've got a question from Linley. Should the stock report equal the monthly stock zero reconciliation? That's a question we usually get. So Oliver, if you can answer that.
Yeah. So one of the things with the difference between the stock on hand reconciliation and the availability is the stock on hand and reconciliation will only show all your orders which are related to that have been imported into your zero or QBO. So if an order doesn't have like the invoice date or the requirements into getting imported and have not been imported at all, it would not show up in this report. However, because the stock on hand availability doesn't care about the accounting side, it can show all orders altogether. So if you, between the two reports, if you had every single purchase order, every single sales order, adjustment, production job, anything that's been done, correctly assigned into your accounting software, it should give a correct value to the stock on hand availability. We can add a pivot to some of the reports if you raise with us to see if a order has been imported to 0 or not, to help give clarity on orders that might be missing if there is discrepancy between the two.
Great. So, yep, there are a few scenarios, like few conditions that need to be met when comparing the 0 or QBO, your accounting stock, with Cin7 stock. And we can share that maybe on Cin7 Connect. So when you are reconciling between your accounting stock versus your Cin7 stock, there are some conditions that need to be met, and then you can actually match those reports. Moving on, we've got a question from Michael, and I see that our customers are really helpful, helping each other. So Michael's question is there a simple report to see the top selling products in order from most popular to least popular as a totals only? And one of our customer has answered that they use the sales by product invoice date report for that.
Yeah, so we could have a look, maybe not the invoice date, but the sales by customer. One thing we have is, let's say we only do customer. What we can do here is we can right click this and we can sort customer by this column. So through here, when we click between the two, it will sort between them. So let's say you have 20 customers and you want to see who's buying the most or you're selling the most to a customer. You can actually right click, sort it by that, and then click on this to sort by descending or ascending order as well.
But I believe this same approach can be utilized in the sales by product report, because I think Michael's question is more on top selling products.
Yeah, so this can work on any report. The sales by product report is pretty much the same logic as the sales by customer. When you open it, it's just to change the pivots around. So it's a bit like a default tab of how it opens.
Great. Thanks, Oliver, for answering that. We've got a question from Stacy. Is there an auto report available? Meaning I had a report that I want to run every day. Can it be scheduled so it runs for me automatically?
Unfortunately, we don't have that as a functionality with automation. However, it is something that does get raised a lot, and I can check if we have something on the roadmap for that. But at the moment, we don't have that functionality. No, sorry.
Yeah, so it's a great suggestion. So the support team actually works closely with the product team here at Cin7. So definitely this can go down as a product improvement request. We do have some automations on Cin7, be it automations sending your emails, running some schedulers to send your orders to your 3PL through your EDIs. But we do not have any report automation. So there is no scheduler that can automatically trigger a report for you every day at a given time. But that's a good thing to have on the software. So we can definitely raise that request to the product team. The next question is from Sven. Is there any way to change the value of the stock to retail or wholesale in the stock on hand report?
That would have to be raised with support. So by default, it's not possible. It only looks at the purchase order or sales order. If you do raise a ticket with us, we can modify the report as needed based on what you're after. So if you look at something like wholesale, it will only show like the value, not the actual. We don't have any wholesales, but it won't show the total. But we can change the stock value to change of where it gets pulled from.
Great, thanks, Ollie.
Not change it, but like add a
add another pivot.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So we can probably build a logic that if you want to pull your wholesale value, because a lot of customers do have a lot of price tiers, be it retail, wholesale, special, etc. So there are ways to pull those values in the reports, but how you place those values on the report matters, because if you do not place that in the right area, the values can just not work, because the reports work on the logic of the unit quantity multiplied by the unit price to give you the total value. If those values of the unit price is not placed at the right area, then we do have troubles loading the correct value at the end of it. So as Oliver mentioned, if you do have questions, Sven, you can just reach out to us. We'll share those details with you shortly, and we can help you from there. Another question I've got from Andrew here is there a report where I can see open sales orders with their linked open purchase orders?
So the only way to currently do that is if you do have, let me just go into the main Cin7 quickly. So we do have a report of the open sales orders. However, if we go into here, the only way you'll be able to see the link transaction of the PO to the sales order is if you utilize this transaction link field. So in here, I can search for a sales reference. I can't remember which one at the moment, but if you click a sales reference here and go search, we can see that I want to link this product to this order. It can do that, and then it will go to on a report. We can make it, but that'll be a custom report but we'd have to scope that a bit more. But by our basic default reports, it's not possible.
Yep. So Andrew, I believe if you can provide your like what you're after, the end objective to us clearly, we can work on those lines and see if we can build a custom report for you. Yeah, that's probably it. At this stage, we do not have a default report that can actually show you the open sales orders linked with their open purchase orders. It's just that you'll have to go into individual transactions to review that, but that's a hard thing. So we probably would need your end objective to figure out what is required. I think Lily just wanted to connect her last question where she mentioned the stock on hand versus the zero reconciliation. And her question is that how do we see what the difference is between the two softwares, the accounting software and Cin7?
So that's something we might have to cover. That'll take a bit too much time to go through completely. So that would go a little bit out of focus because it will require a demonstration of the best way to do that. I recommend just making a ticket regarding that, and then normally the accounting team themselves would handle it because it helps because they know more about getting it correct for the accounting side as well.
All right.
Great. I think
that's all the questions. If I've missed something, we'll share the details with you. Ollie, if you could just go back to the slide and contact Cin7 support. Thank you. I pass it back to you, Marisa.
Yeah, great job, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, again, for attending. We will be doing monthly training, so we hope to see you next month. Any feedback or questions that couldn't get answered, please contact the support that is located on the slide right now, and we look forward to seeing you next month. We'll be announcing the theme soon, so look out for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I hope you have the good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.